Alright guys, welcome to the stream. So today we're taking a look at the Starlink mission, um, trying to figure out if my audio sounds good or not. Alright, so today we are looking at the Starlink mission, and this is for SpaceX to put another batch of Starlink satellites up. And I don't know if you guys heard or not, but SpaceX actually put Starlink satellites up over the Ukraine so that Ukrainians could have internet access.
LWO1 WeatherNet, liftoff conditions.
And here we go. So they are starting the stream now.
TS is ready for launch.
Lower that volume a little bit there. Make sure that still sounds good on my headphones. Sorry guys, this is my first one, so I'm still trying to fine-tune everything. Yep, still sounds good. We are live. And there is Starman there.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Good look at Falcon 9 with the vapor trail coming off the back of the engine there. There's a double landing.
Good morning. It's Thursday, March 3rd, and you're looking at a live view of the Falcon 9 awaiting its 9:25 a.m. Eastern Time launch from Launch Complex 30.
So it looks like we're still go for a launch here in about 10 minutes. And so right now they are fueling the rocket. You can see at the bottom of the screen right here where the RP-1 was loaded, and then the LOX loading is still going. They're going to chill the engines around this time at about I can't remember how long it is before the actual liftoff. They retract that strong back right there, and then we should see a timely liftoff here this morning. The weather looks perfect. It's actually I'm actually in Florida. I'm about 2.5 hours away from the launch site. I can't see them usually, unfortunately, but sometimes at night, I suppose you could probably see it from Jacksonville. So he's just talking a little bit about Starlink now and how SpaceX has operational satellites over the Ukraine. Let's listen to see what he's saying here.
Similar to our previous Starlink launches this year, or some of them anyway, we won't have ground station coverage during payload deployment, which means we won't have live audio.
Okay, so we're not going to see it.
Of payload deployment in real time.
We're not going to see the video of the Starlink satellites being deployed. So what happens in the Starlink is that with the deployment process is that the Starlink satellites are stacked up inside of the bay there. The fairing pops off because it's no longer needed once in the vacuum of space. The fairing is just there to protect the payload on the ascent stage phase of the mission. Once they are in the vacuum of space, they jettison that fairing, which then falls back into the ocean. It's retrieved and reused. Now, SpaceX has been trying to refurbish these fairings now for a little bit because of the expense involved in them. So they are reusing the fairings. This will also be the 11th landing of this particular booster, and not sure which booster it is. But it will be the 11th time that it lands. And so you can always go to can always go check out like launch schedule. If you don't know, if you can go to Spaceflight Now and you can go to the launch schedule here, and here we're looking at, so it's Starlink 49, and it tells you the exact time. So this is supposed to go off in 7 minutes, and then we're going to launch 47 satellites. And so we're going to get to see a drone ship landing, hopefully for the 11th time. But yeah, we are live now. We're 7 minutes away.
Depending on the payload that we're flying. Above the first stage, we have our black carbon fiber inner stage. It's got that distinct color from the unpainted thermal protection
that
system on the surface. This structure
interstage.
connects the first and second stages and houses our pneumatic pushers that are used during stage separation in flight, as well as the Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine on the second stage.
Notice this condensation coming
Now,
off
white
the rocket
portion
is
of
normal.
Falcon 9 above
So what
that
happens
third
when the
stage
cold
is
surface of the
second
rocket meets the warm Florida air? It's probably about, I don't know, it's in the low 60s here in
stage. Will
Jacksonville,
ignite its Merlin vacuum
maybe a
engine
little bit
and
warmer
carry
down
the
south.
Starlink payload into its destined orbit. The first stage will then return to planet Earth.
So there's a good look at,
to recover
just
it
read the
for
instructions.
11th time on our drone ship named Just Read the Instructions.
And they're pre-watering that deck for
Now,
the heat that's
above
going
the
to
second
be
stage,
generated
we're
when
talking about
that
fairing. That's the
landing
nose
burn
at the very top
is
of the rocket.
activated
It's
there.
protecting the Starlink satellites until we get to space. About 3 minutes into the flight, once we've exited.
It's a good look at the fairing right there that they actually do recover. So this is reused. You can actually tell here that they refurbished this one. So that fairing is to protect the payload, the Starlink satellites on the way up to space. Looks like we're about 5 minutes away.
Some pops, some hissing, and some callouts on the net about propellant loading. That started at the T-minus 35-minute mark. Falcon 9 uses two propellants, a refined form of kerosene called RP1, or rocket propellant 1 as its fuel.
The RP1 and then the LOX
as its oxidizer. The liquid oxygen is chilled well below its boiling point.
Yeah, so what SpaceX does to increase the performance of the engines is that they actually load propellant all the way up until the launch time, even with astronauts on board, which is unprecedented in spaceflight. And what this does is that gives the higher performance on the engines because the fuel is super chilled, and that produces more performance. We're about 4 minutes away now, guys, from liftoff down at Kennedy Space Center. And they are at LC-39A, Launch Complex 39A, as you see right there. About 4 minutes away, guys. We're still adding fuel here. About 1 minute into when we're going to launch here, 1 minute before launch, the vehicle is going to go into startup mode where the flight computers are going to take over. And at that point, if the computer sense anything wrong, it will automatically scrub the launch.
To pull away from the rocket slightly, and then
he's talking about the strong back here. That's going to fall back and allow the rocket to lift off.
TE fully retract away, clearing the way for Falcon 9 to lift off from the pad. Now, the TE is a structure that provides liquids, gases, and electrical connections to the second stage. It also
make sure that we're actually broadcasting here. Yep. Okay.
You can see on your screen that it's starting to retract away from the second stage.
Look at the strong back here. It's actually moving backwards.
At this point in the mission, the first and second stages are almost completely loaded with propellants. Fuel loading is complete. Coming up in about 10 seconds, we'll hear a call out for liquid oxygen loading complete on the first stage, followed about a minute after by liquid oxygen loading complete on the second stage.
So they're almost done with fueling now. We're just waiting to hear that call out.
Speaking of that liquid oxygen, you're seeing some gassy clouds around the vehicle.
There.
Those are actually caused by that liquid oxygen. We periodically vent some of the gaseous liquid oxygen in the tanks to maintain the pressure as we top it up. And once that cold,
some of that you're seeing is venting, some of it is just the rocket reacting with the warm Florida air.
And forms literal clouds around the vehicle. The payload, the Starlink payload, continues to look healthy. We're not tracking any issues with this.
Coming up on about 2 minutes to launch here, so these launches are so common now that it's really easy to zip down. If you guys haven't been down to KSC to see a launch, you should definitely go down there. I saw the in-flight abort test from Kennedy Space Center, and although the weather was not great, we did get to see it go up, but we did not see it come back down. Coming up on 2 minutes here, fueling should be pretty much done here momentarily.
Now, shortly after LOX loading completes on the second stage, we will also see venting from the transporter erector. Call it there, indicating that propellant loading is complete in
So
preparation
propellant
for
loading
today's
is
launch.
done. So we're about to get
there's that venting from
a
the
go for
transporter
launch
erector.
here.
As I mentioned earlier, it provides the fluids and gases to the vehicle. So as we're preparing for launch, we clear out those gases from the transporter erector. In about 15 seconds, Falcon 9 will transition to internal control.
This is what I was talking about a little bit earlier. The flight computers are going to take over here in about 7 seconds, and we should see that on the screen.
Through the rest of the mission. And then shortly after,
Falcon 9 is in startup.
So it's in startup now. Then we see right here, flight computers are taking control. Let's listen to this amazing set of sequences here.
From the launch director.
We should hear go for launch here momentarily and see some exciting lighting of a candle. "30 seconds till launch."
T-minus 30 seconds.
LD, go for launch.
All right, we just got the go from the launch
just
director. LD is
under
launch
30
director.
seconds to go. Launch director giving their final go for launch. Let's watch the final seconds here of terminal count as Falcon 9 takes these 47 Starlinks to low Earth orbit.
T-minus 15 seconds.
We got 15 seconds to launch unless we get a scrub
10,
here. 10
9,
seconds.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
All right, our telemetry is on the lower left-hand side there. And there we go. What a beautiful shot this morning at Kennedy Space Center. You can see your speed on the lower left-hand side and your altitude. Now here, coming up here shortly, we are going to see this vehicle reach max Q, which is the maximum stress and aerodynamic pressure that are exhibited on the vehicle. Good shot down, looking back down the vehicle.
Falcon 9 lifting off from Space Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center.
Check out the coast there.
Carrying 47 Starlink satellites to low Earth orbit.
Nice shot.
Now, we just throttled down the Merlin 1D engines in preparation for max Q. That's the point of maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
That's the point when the combination of the velocity of the vehicle and the density of the Earth's atmosphere.
So the vehicle is now traveling faster than the speed of sound, and you probably could see it pass through the sound barrier, and that might have been what that plume was just there.
So with that, we are through the point of maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Okay, made it through max Q, which is the most dangerous point for the vehicle. You can see they're going almost 2,300 kilometers per hour. They're at 19 kilometers in altitude. We're going to see the main engine cut off here momentarily, at which point the first stage will spin around and fire its engines and head back towards the drone ship. Just read the instructions.
Using those pneumatic mechanisms in the interstage. Right after stage separation, the first stage will be making its way back to Earth for
What a great shot, man. They are doing so good with their coverage these days.
Today on a drone ship stationed out in the Atlantic named Just Read the Instructions.
Vehicle is following a nominal trajectory.
Almost 44 kilometers in altitude, almost 6,000 kilometers per hour at this point. We're going to see MECO here in the next 10 seconds. Main engine cutoff. And hopefully we'll see that first stage flip around and head back towards the drone ship.
Cutoff, followed by stage SEP, and then SES-1.
There's main engine cutoff. Now we should see that shot from the vehicle. There goes the first stage. You can see those the engine firing.
Fairing deployment as well.
There we go. So stage 1 is headed back to Earth now. We can see the telemetry. There's your grid fins.
Seeing space for the first time. There's a shot of the Merlin vacuum. You can actually see the fairing halves heading back to planet Earth. And on the left of your screen, you can
Yep,
see
you can
the
see the
first
fairings
stage
dropping
of
off and
the
heading back down as well. But on the
phase.
left side, we've got stage one,
Just a quick
and we
note,
see our
the
grid
three
fins. You're
launch
looking
vehicles,
down
one
towards
of those is
the
flying
bottom
towards
of the
the bottom,
rocket
the
here,
other is flying towards fuel,
and
and we'll be attempting to recover both halves
we are
together
going to
to
have an
recover the
entry
vessel and
burn.
Bob.
What that means is
Stage 2 is continuing
that
to
thing's coming in hot,
explode.
so
The
the
first
entry
stage
burn slows the vehicle
you can
down
see
enough
on the
where it doesn't
right-hand
burn
side
up
has a
re-entering
couple
the
of burns to
atmosphere.
make
On the
before
right-hand
entering
side, we
the
see the Merlin
atmosphere.
vacuum engine
The
performing
first of those is
amazingly,
the entry
and
burn,
we can see the
and
stage
we'll
2
use the
telemetry on the
Merlin
lower
1D
right-hand
engines
side. We are
to
not going to see
slow
the
down
deployment
entry
of
and
the
restore
Starlink
recovery
satellites
of the Earth's
today
atmosphere.
because
The second
they won't have
burn is
tracking
about 12 seconds
station
from countdown
available.
on that first stage. It'll ignite just its single
So on the
cylinder
left side, you can see those
engine
coal
for
gas
the landing
thrusters
portion, and that's what allows the vehicle to
orienting the rocket
rapidly down
as
to
it
zero
makes its
so
way
we can
back
have a
down
soft
to
touchdown on the
just
target.
read the instructions.
Right hand side of your screen, you can see the Merlin
So those
vacuum
grid
engines.
fins, basically what those are for, those are to
Of Earth
steer the
atmosphere.
rocket when it gets more into the denser part of the atmosphere. Those things are worthless in space,
Second
obviously,
stage
because they
will
are
be
air-based
burn until about T plus 8 minutes.
fins.
So
So
it's
until the
continuing
rocket
to
gets into a place where there's more
just
atmosphere, they're
fabulous.
kind of
We had
worthless.
successful liftoff of the Falcon 9 at 9:25
On
a.m.
the right side, we can
Eastern
see
Time.
almost 10,000
Liftoff
kilometers in
is
speed as this thing makes its way up
approximately
to
12:09
a
a.m.
final speed of,
On the
I don't know,
left-hand side of your
25,000-ish
screen is
miles
a
per
live
hour
view
or
of
something like
the
that.
first stage with its
And it's
grid fins in
165
slow.
miles
On
up.
its next major event, which is the entry burn,
Left side, we see stage one headed back down towards just read the instructions,
stage will only
and we
ignite
do
after the
see
stage
the
is
ocean there
completed,
underneath.
targeting its
Still
final
traveling at
destination.
6,800 miles per
On the
hour,
right-hand side
and
of your
it
screen
will
is the
have to have an
Starlink
entry burn here shortly to slow the
477
rocket down
satellites
substantially.
deployed
You can
into
see our
orbit
altitude's dropping though. We're at
around the Earth.
129 kilometers now
Now, those
on the
Merlin
stage
engines
one on the
on both
left-hand side.
stages, on the first stage, are actually optimized for sea level. They achieve about
Still
120
gaining speed on the second
knots of
stage though.
descent.
We're at 11,400
Ocean
kilometers per
and
hour, almost
descent
183 miles.
in a similar
On the left side, we still see stage one
The Merlin
heading
vacuum
back down
engines
to just read
optimized
the
for
instructions. And it's traveling
about
actually
220
accelerating in
nautical
speed,
pounds of thrust.
but we're going to scrub some of that speed
Nozzle
off here shortly
sensing
with a entry
technology,
burn.
allowing us to get more force out of the
It's going to fire those Merlin
exhaust
engines
fluid.
and slow down quite a bit here. You'll
A
see
couple of the
on
grid
the uh,
fins on the Falcon 9's first stage on
on
the
the little
left are
clock
activated.
timeline there when that
Those
hit entry burn.
fins
We'll see our
are
entry burn on
locked
the
into
left side.
place. And as we get back into the Earth's atmosphere, the first stage only uses those grid fins
Now,
to
the only thing
slow
that's going to
down
keep this guy from burning up in the atmosphere is this entry burn. If you come in straight down like that, you would
Let's
literally
start
burn up
the
in the
descent. You
atmosphere.
can see some periodic gas thrusters. That's
I
from
notice it's
the
speeding up more. That's going to happen as it enters the atmosphere and gravity starts taking
gradually orienting the
a hold of it.
vehicle as we get
And
prepared to
as that
slow down
gravity
to
starts taking a
approach.
hold of it and it enters the atmosphere, the more heat that builds up around the
About
vehicle. So
15
that
seconds from
therefore
now.
they'd slow it down with a entry burn.
3 of the Merlin 1D engines on the first stage to slow down the vehicle as we start to hit the denser parts of the Earth's
All right, we're at
atmosphere.
70 kilometers in altitude for stage one now. And we should see those rockets fire, those engines fire right now on stage one on the left, right in here somewhere. There we go. So there's the entry burn. Notice the speed dropping substantially there. So that's what the entry
It's
burn
about
does. It
20
brings that
seconds
speed
from
down
now to
enough so
see
that
the
this
rapidly
vehicle can
raising thrust
withstand
of the first
the
stage.
heat and the atmosphere coming in. And notice we're still at 39 miles, or 39 kilometers, sorry, in altitude there. And the right side's almost 17,000 miles per hour, getting up to
Information
25,
completion
26,000.
of the entry burn.
I'm saying
From
miles per hour, it's
here, the
kilometers per hour,
briefing's
sorry.
going to play a
Used
more
to the standard
important
system.
role as we enter into the thicker parts of the Earth's atmosphere.
Okay, we're at 5,000 kilometers per hour.
The exhaust plume from that entry burn, we actually deposited a layer of soot on the rocket.
Notice those grid fins starting to steer the vehicle now. Well, we lost our feed on the left, but as that vehicle gets closer and closer to the atmosphere, those grid fins can have more of an effect, and so you'll see those actually working more. And it's too bad we may not see stage one at this point because we lost our feed.
Which is deposited onto the vehicle. Coming up about 20 seconds from now, We'll have landing burn on the
So
first
20
stage.
seconds away from the landing burn, as you see right here. And then Seco is
Video
second engine cut
confirmation
off.
of that part of the mission. So
Now we should, hopefully we can see this, but it looks like we're going to miss the landing burn. So it's going to be an uneventful feed here. We may just get video of when it's actually landed. We may not have live video from just read the instructions here, which is a bummer.
and then the second stage, which we have on our
All right, it says that we have landed. Well, actually, the speed's still scrubbing off here on the telemetry. So we should see that landing. We're not going to be able to see it. There it is, live from just read the instructions.
so 4 landing
11th
on
landing
the first stage.
of this particular booster.
Control team.
And of course, we lose the satellite feed because the instability of the
And
um,
confirmation, 11th successful
instability of the antennas on the ship as the
26
and so there we go, guys. 11th landing of this particular rocket, and it has hit the
Orbit insertion.
X marks the spot. So another successful day for SpaceX in spaceflight, and they are going to be putting out these Starlink satellites, which we will not see. So at this point, I would say so far mission accomplished. And we're going to end the stream right there. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you guys again on the next one. I want to do these more, and I got